Hey everybody, I am Staff Sergeant Snell. Today I'm going to be talking to you about OneNote, why I think we need it, and course of action going forward. So these first couple of slides are going to sound terrible. Kind of sounds like I'm bashing on everybody, but I am part of everyone. So it's more of a looking in the mirror and seeing how we can be better. So please don't take offense. Just come with me while we identify the problem. I think everybody's busting their butt. There's no lack of effort these days, but our potential is way higher than where we're operating. And I'm hoping by the end of this slideshow you will see a path out of that. Secondarily, we have world's best Air Force. We have really good airmen coming out of the pipeline. They've been doing whatever they're doing for 6 months to a year, and we are not setting up the environment that welcomes them into a continued life of excellence. I hear people complaining like, these new airmen, they need to continue to be excellent like in basic training. It's like, basic training to be excellent, you just have to pay attention to detail and follow instructions. So that means we are the ones who have to mind the details and give them instructions to follow. Lack of guidance after tech school is one of the quickest ways to get a quote unquote jaded airman, which I don't think should be able to exist, but I hear it a lot and it makes me cringe. But at the same time, if I want to solve it, the answer is to give them a perfect way forward. So I truly think after looking in the mirror, complaining about a lot of problems for years, I've been in for 11 years, and most of the struggle that we deal with is in some way co-signed by us. It's our choice, because every time you choose to be reactive instead of proactive, or to address the symptom of a problem as opposed to the root, you're enabling that struggle. So you can only complain about it too much, or so much. So Band-Aid solutions, we already talked about that. In my first 10 years, I lost a lot of good people to separation, because a lot of times your best people aren't going to want to sit around for years on end. They're not going to want to sit in a day room and wait, standby to standby. And I know that goes way back in our Air Force culture, but we have there, because the tools exist to keep these people engaged. We are no longer absolved of any guilt when we don't keep them engaged. You see what I'm saying? I think communication, delegation, and cooperation are something those are the three pillars that could absolutely propel us into excellence. But we are missing an opportunity right now to make all of our people, including ourselves, a lot better at that stuff. And I realize that I think to a certain extent we are technology afraid, which I understand. I've been to places where they say, "Hey man, we got this new database and it's going to fix everything," and the second that database breaks, the person's already PCS'd and we're all back in the Stone Age. And I wouldn't want that again either. And I've seen macros do some pretty cool stuff in Excel, but the average person, even though they're super simple to build, the average person isn't going to be like, sure, I'll teach myself that new technology. So when I was trying to sell OneNote for my first couple of years, I just got a lot of that answer from people of like, "Hey, no man, sorry, we're not hackers. We can't we can't do that." So this is not that. And then lastly, I'll say, morale is not dictated by days off and burger burns. I think I won't turn those things down. I love a burger and a day off as much as the next guy, but via burger burns, and days off alone, you can't fix the root problem, which is just it's inefficiency, lack of guidance, and lack of mentorship. I think are a couple of the main killer pillars when it comes to bad morale. So let's attack that stuff, and then enjoy our days off and our burger burns even more. Here's a couple cycles that I picked up that were relevant to me. This one on the bottom left was originally a nursing cycle, but I think the parallels are there. So we have analyst turnover, historically very bad, or very fast, I should say, in our AOR, which leads to a shortage, which leads to inadequate staffing, which leads to those jaded young people, and then which leads to burnout, which leads to more people either, getting out or cross-training or whatever it is. And then when you have burnout, you got this decreased performance, which this one's interesting. Between here and here is really interesting, because if you're a lower ranking person and your performance decreases, 90% of the time it takes a really, really good leader to look at a person with decreased performance and ask the right questions to not to fix, generally this person will just begin to hate this person and doesn't, on top of everything the leadership has to do, they don't want to fix whatever problem this, if somebody's jaded, has a bad attitude, they just will start to dislike them naturally because they have to do their full work. Why doesn't this person, right? So it leads to that lack of trust in leadership because whether it's real or not, at least you perceive that they don't like you, which increases fear with regards to the relationship. Based off of personality, that younger ranking person will either avoid it by not doing their work or will become a hyper control freak trying to work above their pay grade. And both of those are almost equally dangerous because if the A-type person does the control, works above their pay grade, they can burn out even further, they can fail a PT test, or they can enable a weak leader by doing their work for them, which is not good all around. So anxiety across the board is high, decreased morale and culture. This is ding, ding, ding. Like right here is the big bad wolf. And then here's the symptom of it, that decreased performance. So I thought these two things were very relevant. I don't want to see these anymore, and so that's why I'm giving you this slide show. At this point, sadly, we have normalized it, and I think normalized dysfunction is a great way to encapsulate what the military does on a daily basis. And there's a beauty to it. Like we stumble along without the complete picture, and we get it done. And I respect that. But do we get things done to the umpteenth level? I don't think so, and I want to fix that. I think, on a good note, everything currently being in flux, the EPR system, with Chief Wright swinging hammers at the top, I think we're in a better state now more than ever to make changes like this, and not have everyone look at us like we're crazy. So we're in a good state. So we've talked about the problem. Here, you can pause this if you want to read it. It's an excerpt from that article I was talking about earlier, where they were talking about, obviously we're not fighter pilots, but at the same point, at the same time, when it comes down to it, like there's pretty much the same reason why people quit jobs across the board, So we've identified the problem, and we're moving forward. I think the solution is OneNote, either 2013 or 2016. When I was I got stationed on the East Coast, and it was my first day shop in my military career, and it was my first time being a program manager. Luckily, they gave me 4 programs just to test my mettle. And I didn't do so well at first. I actually did very, very poorly. But I'm still glad that it happened because it led me to find OneNote. Using OneNote, I was able to take 4 programs, running those solo, and to bring them to a not only passable, not just a floating level, but we were absolutely stellar. OneNote, in a nutshell, it's a digital filing cabinet. At its least, it's a digital filing cabinet where just like a personal drive, where you can, just like your personal folder would be, but everything in it being open and searchable all at once. So it's a step above a personal folder. At its best, I like to say it's an informal collaboration space, because the cool thing about OneNote is that anyone with access to that notebook can be in there and be making changes and touching everything and doing whatever at the same time. And that's really, really beautiful, because in this day and age, people doing most of their collaboration outside of talking to their family, most of their collaboration is done on the internet. So you're used to talking to people and associating with people through screens. So OneNote was created by Microsoft to do just that, to get over that hump of email backlog and bottleneck and all that other nonsense that big corporations deal with. And I think OneNote said 1,000 people can be in any one notebook at the same time making changes, and it can still synchronize all of them. So it's pretty snazzy. You can, I think when I set up my programs, I had a contact list for everyone I could possibly want to contact from my office. And the cool thing about that is, unlike a printed out contact list stuck on your wall, it won't go out of date, because if you call one of those numbers and it's wrong, you just change the number when you find out the right new number, so you can, it's a real-time updated way to keep all the numbers in the right spot. And if you need to print it out, you can. Um, I made a bunch of other videos explaining all this, but just the basics. I like to keep a phone log in there. All of OneNote is compatible with all the rest of the Microsoft Office suite, which is really, really neat. So if you're in Outlook, there's a button where you can click OneNote and it'll shoot that email over to your OneNote. Excel works. You can put tables and whatnot in there. Word works. PowerPoint compatible. So it really is just kind of an overarching method to manage all of your things. It makes everything a lot easier. Also, if you have a Word document in a OneNote, multiple people can open that Word document up and mess with it at the same time. So there's no more locked files that have plagued my existence in the past. Pass down logs are amazing. This next one, step-by-step guides to every single process with pictures. This sounds like a super simple concept, but when it comes down to it, I don't have the time to teach you every single thing that I know how to do. So why not, before you come to replace me, I can just write the things down that I know how to do, one or two every week. And then when you get to replace me, I can say, hey, look, in my own words, with pictures, I was able to build all these walkthroughs and all this pass down for you. How happy are you going to be when it comes to take my job, right? You can put your all applicable regs for your job in there. Workflow coordination is really great. This part is I think underrated. It doesn't, unlike many other solutions, it doesn't require any extra money, time, or manpower. Because it doesn't require any money because OneNote is on every single computer we have. No extra time because ultimately it's a time saver. We actually waste an insane amount of time duplicating effort, recreating the wheel. Just, oh boy. Once you start using OneNote, everything starts looking like a nail to your hammer, as it were. And then manpower-wise, we complain about our manpower struggles right now, but at the same time, we're not all actively engaged 8 hours a day, if you know what I'm saying. So, I mean, for this project specifically, we don't need any extra people. I'm of the mindset that it actually saves us plenty of manpower, because if I can put guides and walkthroughs and everything that I can provide to a customer, all my deliverables in a notebook, if I'm out of the office, you can do my job. You know what I mean? So that it's actually a manpower saver, force multiplier. I know we use this word too much, but I think this is one of the cases where it really does apply. Exportable. The cool thing about this is if you make the coolest program in the Air Force and you've just done it up to the nines, you can, no joke, email your whole OneNote to someone. And that seems super altruistic, but we're always talking about best practices and how standardizing best practices and constantly repeating that almost like it's a buzzword, and I don't see it, So if we want to standardize best practices, literally create a best practice in your OneNote, standardize it by putting it on a Wing SharePoint or sending it to everybody, or if you want to, if a new site is trying to set up a new shop, you have the shop, build up an amazing OneNote and send it to them. It's really, really neat. The hardest part, I'll finish this up by saying the hardest part about selling OneNote is that there's no one way to do it. Your creativity is going to be the only limit to your success and progress. I was able to do all kinds of random stuff with it. Just simply, each day I would think, when I was a deployment manager, a security manager, an equipment custodian, and a language program manager. And at the end of every day, I guarantee you I had a long list of things that were a pain in my butt for that day. And I just had to sit and think, how can I make this less of a pain in the butt for me tomorrow? And using OneNote 9 times out of 10, I was able to do that. I had to hand draw these. I don't know if you can tell, but this is the continuity cycle, in my opinion. So these are different levels of performers. I think one of the major problems with continuity is that it is completely personality dependent. So we're leaving the success or failure of our squadrons up to, do I have the pretty good guy? Do I have the meh guy? Or do I have the absolutely stellar A-type person? If your inspections come during this time, you're golden. If they come during this time, you're not so golden, you know? And if they come during this time, it's just your average kind of 70-80% did my best but failed a lot type person, you know? And this isn't what bothers me. Personality dependence is never going to change. This right here is what bothers me. The fact that each time this person leaves, it goes straight back down to the beginning. This person has to reinvent the wheel when they're done. Same every single time. So it really, I mean, these A-type people, or these, I shouldn't say A-type, but these, you know, quarterback roles are not, they're not every single person in the Air Force. And we don't need it to be every single person in the Air Force, but we can't accept, like, in my mind, that's why I labeled this failure, is because this is not a solution, waiting for the person to come along who's the best. We need to have this person build tools and foundation and whatnot for people like this, who might be going through a divorce, maybe struggling with PT on a profile, don't sleep enough, drink too many Monster energy drinks, who knows, right? And I think if we enable these people up at the top to build the tools for these people, we can get something more like this. I've labeled this success, as you can see, because these are the same amount of energy or the same amount of personality dependence, right? But what you'll notice is that it doesn't drop back down to the original baseline, and it never should. Because if you hold this person to a standard, which, by the way, you can hold all these people to a standard because they literally have to follow your orders. This person goes up to the top. Before he leaves, he has that regret of, oh, damn, I didn't do enough for continuity. So spend 2 weeks and write down everything you know. Then, boom, this person gets to start this much higher than you did, right? It's like the American dream. Just, you know, make it better for your kids. So this person goes up, schmucks it about for, you know, a year or whatever that person decides to do. And then, even then, when it's time for them to go, maybe they add some improvements, because at least, even though their life's crumbling outside of work, at least they're a little bit effective at work, right? So it's a bit of a ego-driven thing. And then, of course, the A-type person is just going to skyrocket with all that stuff, and be golden. So if we want to preach continuous improvement, which I'm constantly hearing about, let's start seeing it. You know, maybe making continuous improvement like a literal priority is a good choice, as opposed to just a bullet on an EPR. All right. So moving forward, we've identified the problem, we've identified the solution. Moving forward, I have gone ahead and made training videos for exactly how to use OneNote. It's on my YouTube channel called Modern AF Solutions. There's another video, like the first video is called Why OneNote, and it's a different video I made of telling my story a little bit more in detail. And there's a lot more buttonology in that video series, because I don't have the time to go to every single office and show people how to do this. So I figured, why not make a YouTube video? The copy template notebook and save it in your corner of the share drive. So I haven't yet PCS to my next unit, but I have had access to that share drive. So I built a little shell OneNote notebook on how you should probably set up your programs. I'm gonna, in about 2 weeks when I PCS there, I'm going to flesh that out a little bit more, and then anyone who wants it can copy it and put it into their corner of the share drive and have it as the OneNote notebook for their office. The next step is to populate that notebook with all the regs that you have, and that's after watching all these training videos. All the regs you have and contacts lists, and change it as needed for your guys' dynamic needs. The next step should be continuity building. What I was talking about earlier, those step-by-step walkthroughs with pictures. Everyone in your office should identify at least 5 processes that they do. And when I mean processes, like, let's say you're a unit health manager and you owe the commander a slide for the staff meeting. We all love staff meetings. But you have to go into ASIMs, you have to, I forget all the steps, I haven't done it in a while, but you should go through and do that one thing and make a step-by-step walkthrough for it, so that if you're out and somebody else has to do it last minute, you don't end up with like a flight chief who has no idea how to do an ASIMS pull. You know, they should be able to easily look in your corner of your notebook and follow the steps, right? Hopefully they have ASIMS access. After that, after everybody gets at least 5 processes, and by the way, 5 processes is not, I mean, I think most people in their job do about 30 to 40 processes, but this is just getting everybody to see and feel how to make these processes, because eventually it needs to become a culture of, if I know how to do this thing and other people don't, it belongs in my OneNote. After that, positional JQS. I included a video in the training about how to take a JQS and turn it into a whole training guide with OneNote. And I think we owe this to the next people. I know JQSs can seem intimidating, and not having training can seem intimidating, but it doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to get started, so because the next guy can keep it going. And I think at this point, if there's no bona fide, broken down training pipeline for your job, you're wrong, and everyone you know is wrong. So if you don't see one, don't wait for somebody else to do it. Watch my training videos, get in there and make it happen. Write yourself a cool bullet, and then sleep soundly, because you made the world a better place. After that, go through for your program and complete a MICT self-inspection checklist. Record all the details and info on the MICT tab of your OneNote notebook. So MICT, I think MICT is actually absolutely beautiful. I love it compared to the old system that we had of inspections. But every time I take on a new program, it doesn't work the way that it's supposed to work. And dealing in MICT, I can't. Let's just put it this way. It's better to, when you take over your program, dive into MICT, open it up. If you don't know how to use it, ask somebody and then make a walkthrough about it, so nobody ever has to ask anybody ever again. And then when you go through and honestly fix your MICT self-inspection, there's going to be some no's, there's going to be, write it all down. Like, document it, fix it, document how you fixed it, and then get that MICT to a pristine level. So when it comes to inspection time, you're going to be feet up on the desk, just absolutely glowing confidence, and you're going to be able to knock anything they ask you out of the park. Here is by no means inclusive, just a bit of a hierarchical chart of how you could set up your OneNote team. So because you have an NCOIC, that person's going to be the final reviewing authority when they're looking at your OneNote. If things are stupid or whatever, they're going to look at it from their having the most experience standpoint, and they're going to be in charge of seeing that big picture and saying, hey, wait, if we're doing this super smart in our office, I can export this to this other office because my friend's a flight chief over there, or an NCOIC across the way. So it's going to open those bonds between offices. Below that person should be your subject matter expert. They should be concentrating on training and injecting all the knowledge that they have in their head into a OneNote, because the people at the bottom, the analysts, are going to completely benefit from it. So, and in their free time, I suppose, they should be listening to the analysts, identifying problems, and leading these guys to create OneNote-based solutions. These are not, all these people can do the same thing, but your analysts should be injecting information into the shop notebook, like when they deal with customers. If something new comes up, or they get a new phone number, or some new hurdle that is not covered in any OneNote, they should be absolutely recording that stuff in there and letting the SME know about it, so that he can crazy check and make sure that no one's duplicating effort. The analysts should also inform the SME of problems and recommended courses of action, because ideally we're trying to turn these analysts into these SMEs, and then these SMEs into NCOICs. Yeah, so it's really breaking down the see, do, teach model, but it is, these guys are simultaneously seeing and doing. This guy is seeing a lot more and doing a lot more, and then this guy is seeing, doing, and teaching it to other people. So I think it's a good way. It's a good way to move forward. And if you do this for a couple of cycles, you'll be the absolute golden standard of whatever shop you are. There's no other way that people can compete when you're working with this level of coordination and this level of only taking steps forward and no steps backward. So it might all seem silly. I'm basically just saying write it all down, but it's a tool to write it all down in a way that is engaging and opens up your people's ability to control their tiny little sphere of influence to make a big change, right? So last slide. The conclusion is, first of all, I appreciate you listening to this presentation. The conclusion is that the commander's job is to make the place better than it was when he or she found it. And your job is just to help. Like, if you want to boil down your role in the Air Force, that's what it is. It's those two things. Up until this point, we have not come up with really great ways to help. It's more, I feel like it's more just bailing water. And so sometimes you got to try new solutions if you want better results. And the solution that I'm here to offer you today is OneNote. And I look forward to working with you in the future. I'm open to any and all questions. Look me up in Global. Yeah, and let's get out there and get it. Thanks for watching.